Introduce the panel, and then Sean is going to come up and explain what this process is going to be like. Our first panelist that I'll introduce, most of us know, is Alyssa Maxey. She first met. Alyssa first met the brothers at St. Mary's College in California, but was not introduced to the mission until she became a LaSallian volunteer. She served for 2 years in Kansas City, Missouri, working in mental health and tutoring centers. She lived in community with 3 to 4 brothers each year, and it was through this experience that she was formed. After serving as director of LaSallian Volunteers, she is now working at Christian Brothers Conference as the programs director for our clan. Now, if you have your LAD, your LaSallian Acronym Dictionary review, you would know that our clan is the Regional Council of LaSallian Association for Mission. Ed Barno is a businessman and with a financial background. He is married and has 2 grown children who have both attended CBA, Christian Brothers Academy, in Syracuse, New York. He has served as a trustee on the CBA board for 11 years, including a term as board chair. He's the first non-alumnus to have been the chair, and currently serves as a member of the district's MEC, Mission Executive Council. Of all of these IAHUs, I heard that for the first time yesterday. I like that one. It sounds like a Hawaiian island. Where did you spend your vacation? I was in IAHU. Not too many tourists, but a lot of professors. Jim Logan is a grad of LSCHS, LaSalle College High School here in Philadelphia. And he was the first cohort of LLI, LaSallian Leadership Institute. He has worked in the St. Gabe's system for 18 years in various direct care and administrative positions. He is currently the director of Del LaSalle Vocational, and a member of the district's MEC, which you already knew. Jim is happily married with 2 young daughters, and according to this, he's an avid Phillies fan, and I'm sure, like most of us, he's waiting for a 2009 do-over come October. Marian Donahue Lynch has given us the largest bio, but then she told me to cut it, and I just said to her, it's a Rhode Island thing, and she agreed with me. Marian has been associated with LaSallian Mission for over 15 years. You named the formation program, and she's been to California, East Coast, LLI, over in Rome. She's currently the president principal of St. Raphael Academy in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, but she served many years as director of campus ministry at LaSalle Academy Providence, which they call the Great LaSalle. Marian has also served many years as a LaSallian youth moderator, and she is one of the few who are varsity members. That means they've attended 10 or more of the assemblies, and she actually coordinated 3 of the assemblies. She's also served on various planning conferences, planning committees, for like Youth Conference, LaSallian Convocation for the Rights of the Child. Marian is a member of the MEC Cordina, District of Eastern North America. She is married to her husband Brian for 32 years, and they are the parents of 3 and in-law to 1, all graduates of the Great LaSalle. Sean will explain how we're going to do this.
I'm delighted to know that LAD, the LaSallian Acronym Dictionary, exists. Believe me, I was going to write a glossary. Have you ever taken a trip on a train and been reading a book, and then discovered that the conversation in the seat in back of you is much more interesting than the text? It's impolite to eavesdrop, but we all do it. No one confesses to it. This morning, we're going to be invited to eavesdrop on a conversation about association. And as that conversation unfolds, eventually we'll bring it to a conclusion, and then Mary will join the group, and we'll have some questions and answers, and extend the conversation into the larger group here. So I invite you now to sit back in your train seat, look intently at your book, and eavesdrop on a conversation.
As you heard, I didn't have the benefit of going to a brother's school. I didn't even go to a Catholic school, and we weren't from an area, my wife and I, where there was a Christian brother's school. But when we decided to look around, I didn't even know the difference between CBA and the diocesan Catholic schools, and I had never heard the word Lasalle or knew what it meant at all. So after 17 years, I think I've learned by not reading about it, but by observing, seeing it, feeling it, and witnessing the lifelong commitment that a group of men have made to better our kids. So, as a parent, I just wanted to say thank you very much for your commitment to our kids, and hope that you know how much we're appreciated and how valuable you are in the lives of these kids.
So, about 15 years ago, I received a phone call from a brother, Fred Mueller, who wants to know if I would like to come to LaSalle Academy to teach religion. Oh, that's wonderful. I knew of LaSalle, I knew about the great LaSalle, and decided to go on the interview. So, went on the interview, successful, Brother Fred hired me, and then he left. Department chair of LaSalle Academy, and the adventure began. But it was through invitation and opportunity and presence of the brothers at LaSalle and some of my LaSallian colleagues that had been involved in formation that I received an invitation to be a part of a couple of LaSallian formation programs. And it was through that experience as a laywoman who had been in ministry in the church for over 30 years, I found home. I found that this was the place where we're welcomed, engaged, challenged, inspired. It is a prophetic mission that we are all about in our own particular ways. So every day I'm very grateful. Even on the more difficult days, I'm still grateful for that phone call. So that's how I was connected. What about you?
I think invitation is the theme. I was invited by Brother Craig Ross to consider becoming a LaSalle volunteer and to live with these brothers who I had seen on campus at St. Mary's, but never lived here. And was a little nervous to live in a community of religious men as a non-Catholic. And what am I getting myself into? My family didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand it. And especially now I look back 11 years later, and I haven't left. My 2 years with the brothers and working with them in Kansas City was, we talked about the last way of the lived reality. It was a lived reality of what association and what the mission is about, and associate for the mission. And I found that I didn't want to leave these 2 years. And I was invited to consider a job as a full-time volunteer, and the rest is history. And I would agree with Marianne that even on the tough days, or the intimidating days like today, that is still here for me. It is home. It is home, and it's a place I feel welcome. And I know one of the fears that Sean summarized from yesterday's discussion was how do we do the work in a non-Christian group, in a non-Christian setting, and as a non-Catholic, I felt very welcome, very invited, very formed, and I felt a commitment and a part of a family and of men that want to walk with me and train me, inform me, and that kind of thing. So I think that's how I can do it. How about you, Jim?
As Brother Phil said, I am a graduate of LaSalle High School, so that was my first introduction to the brothers, and
a tremendous experience, just an excellent 4 years. And I don't want to say anything about the great LaSalle in Rhode Island, but there is a great LaSalle in Philadelphia. But really the invitation to work with the mission, I worked in business for a couple of years, and that was an awful experience. And I went back and I spoke to Brother John D'Alfonso, who was at LaSalle High School at the time, and he said, go out to the hall for 6 months and see if you like it, and if you do, great, and if not, what's 6 months when you're 24 years old? And of course, I went out and I loved it, went back to graduate school, and I will just share this one quick story. At the end of my internship experience, Bob Kinsler, who was somewhere in the room, said, do you want to stay with us? And I said, yes. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I very ignorantly said, I just don't want to be bored. And he, he laughed. I didn't find humor in that comment at the time. And 18 years later, I understand why he laughed. There is not one boring day in 18 years of work. But it is, as everyone up here has said, it is home, and it is an unbelievable gift to be able to live out your faith in the work that you do every day, and to be able to be of service to so many young people who are so much in need. It's just an unbelievable thing to get to wake up and to do and to be a part of every single day. So it's been outstanding.
You know, one of the things I was thinking of in relationship to the Emmaus theme is the centrality of the invitation. That there's a conversation and there's a questioning and there's the prodding, the probing and the doubt and the fear and the hope and all of those things mixing together, and yet at the moment of decision, the invitation happens. And in inviting the stranger in, the revelation happens. And I think, you know, for myself personally, as I hear other people involved in this great ministry, that it does come down to that invitation. And what I hear more and more from particularly young people is the need for the invitation, the longing for the invitation, the wanting to be invited into. Because they're looking for the meaning and for not being bored in their lives. And certainly, Phillips Family and Mission provides, all those things. But the need for community and the centrality of the invitation remains at the heart of the story. Remains at the heart of the gospel story.
It seems maybe a couple hundred years ago, maybe it was a safe assumption to assume that the non-economically disadvantaged maybe had a better opportunity to practice their faith. It was a better environment for them. And certainly, it seems like today things have changed a lot. Not to diminish at all the needs of the economically disadvantaged, but we've talked about the spiritually poor and the void that's in so many young people. So the mission and the needs almost seem to be greater than they ever were. The mission may be more important because I don't know who has a harder path to salvation eventually, but we could go on forever about today's norms and what's accepted and so forth. But it just seems to me the mission is more important than ever.
One of the things that Brother Dennis in his invitation to come here this morning talked about was, can you lay out some challenges or some things that we might think about, what to do? I've had the great opportunity over the last couple of years to be able to visit so many places. So what Ed is talking about in terms of economically poor, non-economically poor, the size and scope of the district and the work that gets done inside of the district is amazing. I mean, really is amazing when you think about universities, the Delta-Tebby network, the child care agencies, traditional high school settings. And I think one of the challenges that I see in front of us is, how does that story get shared more widely. I mean, what all of the brothers do, what all the late partners do in these schools and agencies, I've heard it described over many years as this well-kept secret. I think that society and the church needed to be not a well-kept secret anymore. It needs to be a story that gets shared outside of all the good work that Phil and the communications people are doing in the district. And why we do it needs to be shared just as much as what we are doing, the values, the ethic, what our faith says to us, our charism says to us. All of those things, I think, need to go out to a much wider world and affect life outside of our LaSallian world in positive ways. Because the students, the clients, the young people who come in every day, they have that experience. I think it's just a great opportunity now to share that with a much wider group of people.
So they got up and they proclaimed, right? They encountered the stranger, they brought the stranger in, they had the conversation, they talked, they shared, the revelation happened, and then the challenge, exactly as you're saying, Jim, of the proclamation. How do we proclaim? How do we claim and proclaim what we have today in a way in which the world, our communities, ourselves, our students, the church desperately needs the prophetic nature of the charism? And that is the challenge. How do we proclaim and invite at the same time, awaiting the Pentecost, knowing that the Spirit of God is alive and well? I've heard a lot lately about the sense of urgency, particularly coming out, post-circular and sense of urgency, and people talking about using the word urgency. And part of what I've been thinking about over the past couple of months is hearing that reflection on that is urgency for what? What are we urgent about? And my own personal reflection over the last couple of months is an urgency for the charism. It's an urgency for the mission. It's an urgency to proclaim what we have been so gifted with. And again, the challenge is a very practical way. It's very practical, spirituality. The very practical ways in which we do that. But not to underestimate the incredible urgency of the Holy Spirit in the world today, specific to this charism in terms of proclamation.
I look at the kind of the business side of things, having that background in terms of the schools and the challenges and with enrollment and raising money for our endowment so that any child can go to the schools. I really think that the best thing we can do is exactly what you're talking about. Is to get that word out. I mean, people I think, are yearning for that. A lot of people don't know about it. And we need to get it out beyond, our immediate LaSallian family, beyond the Catholic Church and so forth, to serve all kids. And I just think it's not as difficult as it sounds if we can do what it is we really want to do.
I think one of the things that is so appealing to work with brothers is your humility and humbleness. But it's nice to remember to be humble and brag a little. And just let it be known that this group has the largest number of secondary schools in the country. It's huge. How many people outside of our circle know that? And we have to be also as Italians because insight, forethought. We're ahead of so many trends, but not enough people know about it. And to address the different challenges, and you're right, to get the word out there. Know about this wonderful person and the others. And I think the challenge of I think we try to focus on the reality or the mystical of which challenge do we address first. And the greatest challenge is not one is more important than the other. We have to address all of these different challenges and how do we spread the good news of what we're doing.
Former Superior General Brother John Johnson talked about the power in our numbers. So to talk about that and how we use our larger community, for change and for advocacy for justice and for the mission of educating the young people that have been entrusted to us. And with that, again, it comes along with very practical dimensions of it, and taking, as Sister said earlier, living on that edge. If you're not living on the edge, taking up too much space. I remember the bumper sticker. Do the math. So, from that, it's unsettling. I think that's the other part of it too. I mean, sometimes people want a surety of things, particularly today with everything's going on. There's so many things that are so fluid in our lives, in our country, in our society, and in the world that people look for an assuredness. And I think one of the gifts that we have as a community is that our assuredness is in the resurrected Christ. I mean, that's our assurance. It's in our faith and relationship with God, and that it's from that having the hope and the faith to take the risk. So, very practically, where are we hearing about the ideas for new and creative ministries within the so what way can those ideas begin to percolate? Is there a process that people know somebody has a great idea and well now what do you do with it? Like who do you go, who do you talk to, how does it get discussed, how does it get vetted, from a very practical dimension of things. So it's there. It's all bubbling up. It's a matter of now challenging ourselves to find ways in which we can put flesh on the bones and making some of those incredible ideas reality.
Think of what Sister said also about how the brothers joined it with Sister St. Joseph's stuff about ministry. They shared resources and they worked up together. And I want to say that these challenges, I don't want them to just be brothers' challenges anymore. I think they're challenges to us as society. So I think that Sean, in the summary, there was a comment of when the business merge is creating a new ministry, a direct service to the poor, and how are we doing that, and how have we done that? And I think it doesn't have to be just the brothers' responsibility to figure out a way to do that and to continue to sustain it. The sustainability is a big issue with those ministries, but it's how do we together, as associates for the mission, create a new entity, as you're saying, how do we work together? And I think that's a scary transition because there's some unknowns there. But how do we do it together? And it's no longer the brothers figure out the way to do it, but we're all invested in what to do.
I think too how one of the things for St. Gabe's system, I don't know how true it is for the whole district, but we often have this mentality of, well, we'll do everything. So whatever this kid needs, we'll simply make it happen. And there's a reality to the current day that you can't do that. So how much too is in partnering with community resources and people outside of our network of schools and agencies that enriches us and enriches them and is beneficial to the young people who are with us. So not just in thinking outside of who do we share the work that we're in terms of stories and the value system, but also actually sharing the work and making, it's not just about we make or we help make kids' lives better. We can partner with a lot of people to help make kids' lives better. So how do you make those community connections as well?
Yeah, and there's some wonderful examples throughout the district of, places that are doing that. And, the other thing that I heard this morning that I thought was so interesting was about vocation work. That the work of vocation is calling people into a realization of their life vocation, including the vow consecrated life, is something that we should all be participating in and encouraging and being a part of and challenged to be a part of. Because the expression of how this character is lived out is part of the powerful nature of it is that it's varied. And in being so, it's something that we have our personal vocations, but the need to be involved in vocation formation, specifically to the brothers as well, is something that is very exciting to be a part of.
Yeah, for the sake of being repetitive, I think people want to be reached out to. There's a lot of people that are just, they're ready, and for some reason maybe they haven't made the leap yet. But I think people want to be asked to, be part of something that they truly believe in. So it's not an impossible task to really expand the community. It's the mission that everybody believes in.
Coming to the invitation, we've all been invited. That's where we're going out to invite. And remembering that we don't only just have to once, maybe we have to go back 2 or 3 times. And how often are we our friends invite to do things and to do things? And I think I agree. You know, someone said location. Sometimes we might have our collective, all of us, not just the brothers and sisters, we can have a larger voice. And are we being conscious and making an effort to really seek out people to invite to locations, not just as associates, but as brothers. I remember being somewhere and talking to a layman who said he had worked in the ministry for 10 years before someone had invited him to consider the brother. And it stood out and it touched me. Like, why didn't they invite that person to? No, the person didn't go in, but he was waiting for that invitation. So how can we help?
Train is pulling into a station. So there will be a pause for a minute while Mary joins the group up here, and then we're going to open it up to a conversation with the large group here with any reflections, questions, comments, points of clarification. So you may want to buzz with one person next to you for just a minute or two about what you've heard and what you might want to hear more about. Just for a minute, you buzz with the person next to you.
Friends, as we prepare to transition into this next question and answer session, I just wanted to share with you, I guess it's a measure of how many times I've been around this Lasallian block of ours, and that I can actually say that I have a few little stories I want to share with you about a couple of some of our panelists here, and it gives you some idea of, and this all provides the foundation for urban legend. I can't claim that all of these are exactly true, but it's close enough to the truth. So, for example, with Jim Logan over here, I happen to know that a number of years ago he actually ran with the Bulls in Pamplona. Now, he claims that he was completely sober, but there are those of us who doubt that. All right. And then Alyssa, right next to him, I learned this last year about her. I think everybody here in this auditorium saw, The King and I, right? The musical with Yul Brynner, right? Well, the real king of Siam happens to be, now I'm not going to get this exactly right, but Alyssa is like his great-great-granddaughter, so she's like a princess of Siam. And then Mary Ann Donahue Lynch, just the other year at the Huther workshop, she finagled her way into have a dinner with the Marxist foreign minister of Nicaragua. And so, and Ed, I don't know you, so you get all the spot. So anyway, brothers, at this time we have this opportunity once again to to ask questions, and I imagine with Sister Mary, a number of you may have a lot of burning questions that you didn't have a chance. I noticed I was grateful to see a good number of you corner her after the presentation, and that was good to see. But I think there were a number of you who were looking for an opportunity to share some thoughts or reactions. And Dave, we'll begin with you.
I'm going to kind of move on the whole thing of the presentation. One of the things that I think, Mary, I'll put it to you first, although Elizabeth and Jim probably also did a little bit more internal to this. One of the things I think has been happening as we more and more incorporate like partners is how do we invite people to move toward leadership roles. I think one of the tendencies we've had in our institution have been to throw out wide open national searches for the best talents, which a lot of times gets us educational best talent, but not always Lasallian kind of in their viewpoint. And sometimes I think we win people over, and other times I think it's pretty close. So I guess, Marianne, I would ask, what do you think at LaSalle Providence were the experiences that helped you take on the principalship at Pawtucket, and what would have been helpful? What kind of things do you think we need to put in place so that we can encourage a lot of our own people internally to move toward leadership roles? And then if anybody else wants to jump in.
Brother, I think it's a great question. Thank you. Clearly, my experience at LaSalle Academy was under the direction of Brother Michael McHenry and Brother Fred Lewis, in addition to the Principal John Kavanaugh, who offered opportunities for me to be involved in formal Lasallian formation. So in my role as principal, one of the things that I've done is to look around and to see who has that natural tendency or interest, initially, who are the ones that are offering themselves to participate, to be a part of, and then to provide the opportunity for them to become involved in the more formal experiences of Budmer and Elon. But beyond that, there needs to be, if there isn't already, in all of our ministries, and it's responsibility of the chief administrator of that particular ministry, formation programs, some level of formation program within our ministry, so that everyone is involved in some aspect, whether it's reading the circular or a book or watching a movie, having a guest speaker, whatever it is that within our ministries, a connection to the Lasallian world and an understanding of who we are is just essential to that. And then to not only offer the formal opportunities, but to engage in the informal conversations, to make yourself available to sit and to have conversation with, and to develop relationships with people in your ministry so that you get to know them and you get a sense of their hopes and their aspirations, their fears and their concerns. Because sometimes your best leaders are the ones that don't see it within themselves initially, but you see something within them. And so, again, the opportunity to have conversation, and in many cases, the more informal, the better. And when you initiate those relationships, I know that there are points in my life, in my discernment over the past 15 years, where I have had the opportunity to go to mentors and to be able to sit down and have some very honest conversations about where I'm at and perhaps where I need to be looking at going in my life. So I think relationship, opportunity, development is key.
Thank you. Any other questions? Jim, did you have one? Did I see your hand? I'm sorry. Robert or Bud?
This is the time also. A comment first. A couple of you very clearly said something about
Not working.
inviting us. How we're going to our family.
I'd just like to thank you all for the invitation and also helping us feel at home in the family of the church, the Vatican II Church, which is something that I think we really needed. My question, you said very passionately and I think sincerely how the relational aspect of our LaSallian family. I'm wondering, without putting you on the spot, if you could say a word or two about how being a part of our family has helped you in your own faith journey, your own sense of God.
It's kept me connected to church. And church in Vatican II, church in, we are the church. We are the people of God. It's that simple for me. I found a home in LaSallian spirituality. And it's the connectedness, it is the community.
I would agree with Mary Ann, and I apologize for fading out earlier, so I'm going to try to speak into the microphone. I was very welcomed and encouraged in my faith journey as a volunteer, and I continue to be encouraged in a faith journey, whether it's in the Catholic Church or not, by the brothers I consider as mentors. And I remember as a volunteer, I would go to Mass with the brothers when they would go, but I remember specifically one weekend where my community director said to me, I think you should go find a Buddhist temple in the area to go practice what you've been raised in and explore that some more. At 21, 22, I kind of shrugged it off. Didn't think too much of it. And I think I did, and I've gone a few times. But for me, and I talked to my mom about this, she's a Buddhist in the family, but she was raised in the Church of England, a long story. She always says there's so many similarities, and so the root of my faith, whether it's in the way I practice it through going to temple with my mom at the Buddhist temple or going to Mass with all of you, I still feel I'm growing in my faith, and it's in my discussions, and it's in the work that we do, and in our prayers and our intentions for those that we're working in, or that we're working with, and to constantly be conscious of being compassionate and being aware of others. So I think every day in my interactions with the brothers, with the lay partners, like I said, it's daily, it's in our work, it's how we live. And I feel to be blessed to work in a place where I can grow, and I'm encouraged to grow in my faith life on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think simply for me, it's just a example of really caring. I mean, as a parent, I see parents of kids in public schools, and they go there and they get a great education, a lot of public schools, but knowing that you've got people at our schools that are pulling with you in the same direction, and not just about education, of being good Christians, and just the true caring. I mean, it's had an impact on me. My son, when he was in high school, I won't embarrass somebody here, but he lost a classmate, and a brother that was at our school. He spent a lot of time with these group of kids that were close with him, and I mean, they were questioning their faith and questioning a lot of things, and just to see the commitment and the true caring that the brothers have and others that are part of the family, it's just you can't help but make an impact on people. But just being that great example of true love.
I would just add quickly, what the brothers have given to me, both at LaSalle High School and throughout my work life now with them, is a great challenge because, I'll put it this way, growing up in a family in an area where it was kind of a check-off Catholic, did you go to Mass, you say your prayers at night, you go to confession once a month, that kind of thing. Your faith life now is about your lived reality every single day, every moment of every day. How does your faith, enliven your life, and how do you live your life according to your faith? And then to be able to talk to young people about that, regardless of whatever religion they proclaim to be, but to talk to them about a faith life and what that means, and how that invigorates their own lives, that's tremendous. So it was a very welcome challenge in my own life as opposed to that kind of technical conservative Catholic.
Dennis.
You're in the midst of all of these smiling, warm faces of brothers who love all of you very much. And many of you are very known to us. So we can afford to have some candid conversation, hopefully. And maybe the kind of conversation that you would really hear in the back seat of the train. And our part of our team is called to be brothers. What kind of brothers do you need us to be today? What do you need from us as your brothers as we go forward in this journey of hope?
Well, not to continue with the invitation, but last week I was with Young LaSallians in Washington, D.C., which was a wonderful gathering. And a couple of them knew that I was going to be here today. And a number of them said, tell the brothers to invite us. Tell the brothers to engage us. Sometimes I walk into a school cafeteria and there'll be a group of brothers sitting at a table, and it's intimidating. I don't feel as if I can walk up and sit down there and say, so what's going on? You enjoying lunch? That there is a certain level of intimidation, and quotes, put whatever we want around it, but to just walk up and engage and to become a part of who you are. And yet, again, the want and the need that we're looking for that in our lives. So, I'm at a certain point where I feel I can call Narragansett and say, can I please come down and spend a couple of days during Holy Week, and if there's space, I know that I'll be welcomed. But that should be something that all lay partners involved in the LaSallian mission should have a sense of being able to make those kinds of connections. So invite them to dinner, invite them to the lunch table, invite them to a study group, invite them down, have a day down at the Jersey Shore, and a lake partner day, whatever you want to call it, and invite people. But that is one of the key things that I hear, particularly from the young LaSallians.
I would say to be passionate and to remain passionate. Numbers don't matter. Just share a quick story. Brother Tim Dean was the animator for the St. Gabe system for the last couple of years. And one of the things that he and I were working on together was a new hire orientation program. And there were dates that were needed for a fall orientation. And I was supposed to get the date. Well, I sit around and drink cookies or eat cookies and drink milk most of the day, so I simply forgot that this date needed to happen. For those of you who know Brother Tim, I got a phone call saying, in a not so polite way, hey, you forgot the date, get on this needs to happen. And at one level, it was a little embarrassing, but a good embarrassment. But at another level, it was, I care tremendously that this charism gets passed on, and you need to care tremendously. And it wasn't so much in the words that he said, but the emotion that he had. And you see that over and over again. So the passion and the energy that you bring, along with the invitation and the mentoring, I think is incredibly important. So my answer would be passionate, don't lose that. And as Dennis said, you can be candid and don't worry about people's feelings, they'll get over it.
I would agree with both what Marianne just said, and I think it's let more people see your association to one another. I think so often our relay partners and young LaSallians, especially in the workplace, it is intimidating, and they see the brothers on this pedestal. Anyone on pedestals, but they don't get to always see your brotherhood association to one another and your lived reality and your camaraderie. And I always feel blessed that I've witnessed that in my time living in community as a volunteer and my time to know so many of you in the different work. And I want more people to have the opportunity, like Marianne said, to be able to call us Narragansett and to reach out. So it's challenging because it's making yourself vulnerable and it can be uncomfortable, but I think the more that others can see your brotherhood and your association to one another is very important.
The other thing is that with the formation programs, a lot of it is intellectual, which is necessary because you need to know the documents, you need to know the history, you need to know the teachings, you need to know that as a good foundation. But we shouldn't underestimate the heart. We're very good about the head. We shouldn't underestimate the heart. To give ourselves the opportunity to come together in prayer, in celebration, a day of silent retreat. And again, for so many of us, we're connected in all the time. Such a gift to be able to offer an opportunity to have people come and unplug and just be present to each other. And I'm thinking of Noble House in Narragansett, such a beautiful setting, and just to offer a day where people are invited to be together in community, in association, in quiet, and maybe a meal at the end to end it. The opportunities to have those very practical chances to be present to each other and to fill ourselves spiritually is something that people are longing for as well. And the particular charism of LaSallian spirituality, again, is just like a gift to the world. It is something that people are longing for, particularly young people. And very often it comes with the invitation. It's giving people permission to be a part of, to be present to be in relationship with, that you're permitting people through that invitation to get in touch, to get to know themselves, and to become in deeper relationship with God. So it's part of our evangelization and our catechesis. Last evening, one of the sentences, one of the few sentences in the movie, last evening was, they found salvation in their daily work. And we talk about salvation for the young people entrusted to our care. But getting back to the question earlier about church, in many ways being part of this LaSallian ministry, it's the way where I feel through my daily work with the young people. In the daily work is where I find salvation, or being offered the opportunity for salvation. And that's just tremendous. And so that prophetic nature of who we are together in an association, to attend to the heart as well as to the head.
Alan.
It is Mary, right? I'm in the Diocese of Memphis. Every year, our bishop has a half day listening and conversation with all the religious in the diocese. And a couple of years ago, in the visitation that you mentioned, when that whole thing was an issue, and he was talking about it, one of the sisters stood up and said, Bishop, don't they understand that being true to the charisms of our foundresses means many times seeming to step outside of the boundaries of church or the culture of the hierarchy or the culture of the society at our time. And the bishop said, yes, he understood that, but he couldn't speak for the people who were responsible for the visitation. One of the things that I'm thinking about as I hear each of you speak, and two of you have kind of spoken to this in a way, the brothers in inviting you into LaSallian mission frequently are thinking in terms of a particular structure as it exists, by which I mean institutions. And at the same time, at this point at which we think about, well, where might we be going next, I think of Ed Phelan or Ray Blix, who came from within a particular structure, but were looking for needs or attentive to needs that perhaps deviated a little from what was done in the past. All of which leads to my question. To what extent, in the various roles that you have, do you encourage the people that you pull in terms of their diversity, to look at circumstances with their own eyes and experience? Alyssa talks about Buddhism, to bring with them that and look into the circumstances where they're serving for perhaps some other opportunities. That was the question.
Okay, and I apologize because I really was with you until you said this is the question, and then I was trying to get the mic. So could you?
That concludes our session.
And I do know it's Bishop Terry, isn't it?
Yes, Terry
From
Scott.
Memphis. And he's a wonderful man, and he does get it, and he does understand, but he's religious, so he has, but I thought you were going down that route. So could you just go to your question? I'm sorry, really.
LaSalle, you think out of the box. How are we, that's a semicolon.
Yeah.
How do you, that's all I want in one sense to do it. How do you encourage that in the places where you are working? Like, I would invite, if we heard about the invitation to work with the St. Gabriel system, and in that direction was the question, well, what would you like to do here? And my question is, well, shouldn't he also think about things that he may see in the course of working here that hasn't been touched yet? That's kind of what I'm asking.
And he is the bishop? Yeah. Okay.
I'm
really
adding this, so I'm going to try.
Who is clearly not the bishop.
Okay. Okay, so you're asking how I personally would encourage people to think outside. I wish I had the answer for that. Right now I'm in leadership, and I think that one of my responsibilities, and as a member of the leadership team, our responsibility is constantly to, I guess I'm going to borrow that word, invite people to not dismiss structures, because we need structures. And I could really go off on a whole thing here even about the church. I just heard Meg Wheatley recently, and I was profoundly touched by something she said, because especially with experiences, let's say, like the visitation or the investigation of LCWR, it's very easy. It's easy to dismiss those structures. And it's easy to say, well, my congregation of the Sisters of St. Joseph is my church, which I often do feel is true. And I've heard that reference here often, that many of you find people who are absolutely incredibly committed and deeply imbued with the Lasallian mission, well, in a way, that becomes my church. And I think we have to, this is what she shared with us, Sisters of St. Joseph at the Federation. She said, stop talking about them. Stop referring to them as, the hierarchy. They have names. It's hard to remember that. And so I think that we have such gifts with our charisms, our collective charisms, brothers, sisters, to be able to be outside the institution and to help remind it what it really is called to be when it gets tied up in those structures in such a way that it limits the very message of Jesus. And I know that sounds simplistic, but this is what she said, and I can't get that in my head. Stop talking about them or the institutional church. Call them by name. Now, of course, what names we call them is another And so, the old phrase, stay at the table. I'm probably not even answering the question here, but in any event, that old thing about staying at the table, I remember I used that in a talk one time, and this sister came up, and I thought she had a gun. She was going to shoot me. And she said, "You think we can stay at the table?" She said, "We're not even at the table." But you know what? I don't want to give up the opportunity to be there. And I don't want to give up the opportunity to model what church is. And all of these people on the stage are living it. You can hear it, but you can feel it. And that's what I don't want to give up. So I think in my particular limited area, what I want to keep doing for our sisters is I want to free them up to be able to really remember their roots, but how their roots are integrated into where we are today. Because you know what, if we make that connection, we'll never be put up in the structures. We will never be put up in the structures. We will be who we are called to be. And I think that's the best gift that right now I see that as my service and leadership. Not to make decisions, although I have to do that sometimes, lots of times, things I don't really care about. But ultimately, that's what I think that we can do. And I think that's the leadership of all of us here. You don't have to be in an elected office. That's the leadership that we can give to the people of God. Not to do what others have done to us, not to cut them off, but to keep extending. That's what De La Salle would have done. That's what I read what he said. I was so touched. But that's why he's a saint. Because what he said then is more than applicable now. I probably didn't answer your question, but yes. Oh, okay, thank you. Not only can I not hear, I can't see either.
Alan, did you
They're helping me out up here.
Did you have a follow-up, Alan?
I have thumbs up.
All right. Then it seems, brothers, that it's appropriate that we call an end to this wonderful session. First of all, we want to extend once again our extreme gratitude to Sister Mary Dacey for an outstanding. Gratitude as well to the wonderful Lasallian panelists. And a couple of very brief housekeeping notes. First, brothers, you can pick up your shirts out in the lobby there as you depart. Also, out there somewhere is a place for you to indicate whether or not you are going to be here for lunch on Friday, our last day, Friday. There's a place out there somewhere for that. And just to remind you that for those of you who are remaining on campus this afternoon, Mass will be available at 5:15 p.m. So everyone, please have a very safe and enjoyable summer. Have a nice afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9. Put Jesus in our hearts.
Thanks, Phil. Hi. Is your retreat over? I did keep things. Have you been working okay? Like they were asking you about Uber and AV. It's doing okay. The sound is very much goal. You want to be good? Thank you.